Welcome to the latest and greatest Aimsio webinar. We're going to be talking today about how fast industry leaders are moving and how to really accelerate your cash flow with digital approvals. Just by way of a quick introduction, I'll introduce myself. I'll pass to my co-host here, then let him introduce himself as well. So my name is Dennis Hale. I'm the VP Sales with Aimsio. Been with the organization now for about 7 years and incredibly excited to be on this journey that we're on to help companies like yours improve cash flow, accelerate billing, centralize all of their operations, and really make it a much better daily working environment because things are running so smoothly and efficiently. So yeah, excited to be a part of this Aimsio journey and I'm joined today by my co-host, Mr. Abbas.
Hello, my name is Abbas Sarraf, and I'm one of the co-founders of Aimsio. More than 10 years ago, we started Aimsio. I'm also one of the nerds, um, and I love looking into data and the software and whatnot, and really excited to share some of the insights we learned when we looked at, the data that was inside Aimsio, and hopefully we can learn a thing or two from the conversations today.
Yes, Dr. Nerd.
Dr. Nerd.
Dr. Nerd, Dr. Nerd. So, just so that everybody knows, over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to try and keep us on time and keep this webinar on time. But we're going to cover a few things. We'll get into kind of the introductions and our just cause. Talk about some of the market trends that are happening out there that you guys should be aware of if you're not already. And then why we are all here is to dive into the data, right? We're going to get into the data, see what's happening with digital approvals, see how that information is moving its way through the system and allowing companies to ultimately get paid. We'll finish it off with some Q&A time and just a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody is currently muted, so if you do want to have any kind of ask any questions, please use the Q&A panel there and put your questions in there, and we will absolutely get to those as soon as we possibly can. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So, our just cause is really why we exist. Why does Aimsio exist? And for us, it goes beyond digital approvals and cash flow. It's really about helping hardworking people build the future through operational excellence, and that means a lot to us. It means that the work that you do is vital to the economy. It's vital to everybody's lives and their livelihoods, and we want to make sure that that's celebrated by providing a system that's going to help you achieve that level of operational excellence. So, with a few quick numbers here, just to showcase, where the knowledge comes from on the topic that we're about to speak on here. It's really from the transactions that happen through our software every single day. So, we're putting about $10 million worth of ticket revenue or invoice revenue through Aimsio every single day, and that translates into a lot of insights. So far, we put about $12 billion worth of industrial revenue through Aimsio, and that number continues to climb at an exponential rate. And many of you may be saying to yourselves, okay, well, great. What's that mean to me? What's $12 billion mean to me? Well, that's where I want to dive right into some of the insights and trends in the market today. Many of these things you probably already know, but in case you don't, it's kind of cool to take a look at what the capital expenditure is like for the energy sector. And we're looking specifically at Canada here for 2024 because these numbers do paint a really strong picture about what energy producers are putting into their resources and into maintaining their assets and into extracting oil and gas from their plays that they have scattered across the, North America predominantly. And you can see here that, the total capital expenditure, oil and gas extraction, about $46 billion across the year. Now, if we're looking at the entire energy sector, so including all those kind of companies on the periphery of direct oil and gas, it's about 89 billion, upstream about 40 billion. Oil sands specifically, if we're looking at the oil sands extraction, about $13 billion in 2024. Now, looking at the previous slide, Aimsio's put 12 billion through our system. So it's a significant chunk of what is being spent on capital expenditure by your clients, right? And that means that we've got some pretty cool insights and cool data to share with you guys about how this capital expenditure is being processed, what's slowing it down, what's speeding it up, and how you can actually make good use of that information. And if nothing else, come away from this webinar with some thoughts around, how this is happening on a daily basis. All right. So moving into some of the things that we've really learned is that producers are seeking this digital efficiency, right? They're seeking digital efficiency by employing a vendor management system of some kind. They're really trying to get rid of the paper tickets, and they're looking for more reporting, more digital reporting that helps them understand that, hey, if we're spending 13 billion on our capital expenditure, and that's going largely to our suppliers and vendors, what does that look like? How can we make sure that that spend is being tracked accurately and clearly and moving through the system nice and efficiently? Because they're not going to spend that money in a way that is disconnected or really manual. They want to make sure that that process is nice and clean. So some of the trends that we're seeing, and feel free to add as well, Abbas, is like, we've seen this emergence of vendor management systems, and what those are, systems like Open Invoice, Open Ticket, there was Cortex back in the day, Ariba. These tools are ways for them to funnel that money into their vendors and make sure that it's done so in a really clean and reportable way, right? Um, we're finding that there's no consensus across projects. So you could be working for one producer and providing a service to that producer, and that producer is saying, you have to do it this way. But another company, also serving the exact same producer, possibly doing the exact same work, is saying, no, no, you have to submit this way. So there seems to be no consensus there amongst projects, even if you are working for the exact same company. We've seen this time and time and time again. We're seeing long payment terms, which is obvious and preaching to the choir. I'm sure you're on the receiving end of those longer payment terms. Um, we're seeing misaligned incentives, right? So that means that if the incentive on the producer side is to elongate timelines, perhaps, and maybe keep cash in the bank, that means that the incentives on the other side, on the supplier side, are struggling to keep up and to match that. And it's really creating a big challenge. And another thing that we've seen, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit, Abbas, is a reduction in revenues amongst vendors according to our data. So, we've seen about a 7% decrease, I think it is, year over year in, the total revenues for some of the companies that use Aimsio or that would even use other systems potentially. Like, what's that look like? What does that
So
mean?
this is across hundreds of customers that we have. And we usually, as you saw the number in the previous slide, $10 million a day type of transacted revenue. So we look at that number very closely every day. And especially this year, when I looked at it, I realized that it's not moving as fast, or it's not accelerating as fast as I thought it would.
Mm,
And when I looked under the hood, I noticed that, our existing customers, that's where, still, transacting through Aimsio last year, compared to this year on an aggregate level, they're making 7% less.
mm.
So I think it kind of talks a little bit about, the macroeconomics that is going on in the oil and gas sector, and
Of course.
some of the uncertainties. And we can see it, based on our own data sets, that everybody's taking a hit. And this is, consistent across our American and Canadian customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a macroeconomic environment that's influencing this, things like tariffs and all kinds of stuff, right? So it's stormy weather, I think, out there, a little bit of a winter storm. But hopefully that trend is something that we see reverse in the not too distant future. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the systems that are at play here and in this environment. So um, just kind of following from the beginning. So we talked about capital expenditure, money being funneled out into vendors, service companies, and even construction companies to maintain assets, to extract resources, etc. Um, so that work being awarded is typically done through, some kind of an email or some kind of digital communication. There are tools out there as well that are being used as a kind of a bidding or a dispatching software that, if you want to work for us, you have to accept a job through this kind of system, right? So we're seeing that on the top end. Moving into phase two, we're looking at the work being completed, and that's where a lot of our customers are, of course, is doing the work. It's boots on the ground, and a lot of times, if you're not using a system like Aimsio, then you're potentially managing this with Excel, managing it with paper, and obviously there's a lot of potential errors in running it that way. Um, then we move into the work approval, which is what we're here to talk about mostly today, is what does that approval look like? And it could be an email to say, hey, please approve this. Or you could be utilizing a portal that's embedded in Aimsio, for example, which is where we're getting a lot of our statistics from on how this market is responding. And then lastly, it's the submission into the client system. So you may have a tool like we mentioned earlier, like an open invoice, open ticket, or something like that. Or you could just be simply emailing to accounts payable for your clients and submitting invoices that way. So there's lots of key pieces here, and obviously our mission, coming back to our just cause, is to try and simplify this entire thing, right? Let's try and make sure that this transaction that's happening with your clients is as smooth as possible and as frictionless as possible, so that everybody can focus on what they do really well, which is delivering their services. Okay, so before we get into the data, just want to quickly talk about the fact that producer-driven systems, like we just mentioned, are not always as rigid, I guess you could say, as one might think. And this is just a nice little anecdote that we've picked up over the years, and we've seen it because we've seen a volume of these types of interactions. And what we found is that some suppliers, depending on the size and the scope of the supplier, and depending what they do, if they're construction or oilfield services or what have you, but if they've got a good enough kind of imprint in the market, they tend to be able to push back a little bit on their customers to say, hey, if you want us to do this and this and this, um, we're going to charge a fee for that. We're going to charge an administration fee. So that we're actually seeing that happening today. No, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, you want us to do it this way. Here's an admin fee because this is outside of our daily operation. So that's on one extreme. On the other extreme, of course, is that it's just whatever the customer says goes. We only have one customer. They constitute 85% of our portfolio. If they want us to jump, we say how high, right? That's the other side of the extreme. I think that there's middle ground. And the only reason why I wanted to put this information out there to everybody that's attending is because it's just about awareness, right? Believe it or not, people are charging admin fees. Believe it or not, people are not, doing anything and they're just doing exactly what their customer says. So somewhere in the middle is probably where you want to be. Now, without further delay, we're at the 15-minute mark. We've got about 30 minutes left in total. I really want to make sure that we get into the data and talk about the data and what can be learned from the data that we have been collecting over the years and analyzing. And this is where I'll pass it over to you, Abbas, to share some of these key insights.
Okay, so when I started looking into the data, first, this is the ticket data. So the actual approval on the work that you have done before you go ahead and invoice your customers, right? We looked at our starting point was, okay, let's look at $1 billion worth of data, right? And that turned to be about 120,000 tickets. The time range is most of 2024 plus, I think, January, February 2025. And when you looked at this data, this is across about 1,700 unique companies and about 6,000 unique individuals who have either logged into Aimsio or received the emails and evaluated and either approved or declined a work that was submitted by our own customers. Now, on the 1700 companies, and I have another slide to show you, most of these companies are oil producers, right? The Suncor, CNRL, Pembina of the world. And there are also some that are within our own network of customers. So, for example, a trucking company did a hot shot for a matting company, or the matting company worked for a pipeline company. And in that transaction, one was the customer of the other. Maybe tomorrow they will be the customer of another of our own customer. But the majority of work, I would say, as you can see on the left chart here, it was done 11, close to 12,000 transactions were done with Suncor, followed by close to 10,000 for CNRL, Strathcona, Pembina, and the rest. On the right chart, you will see, if you remember, I said about 6,000 individuals. So 355 of them were coming from CNRL, followed by about 240 coming from Suncor, and then the rest. So a lot of the producers on the Canadian side, they have interacted with our system one way or another, approving stuff that were submitted by our own customers.
That's like the insight, I think, for me, is just the realization that these companies are not only accepting this type of a approval system, but they seem to be embracing it, and within pockets. Now, like we talked about before, there's no consensus, right? So you may be a supplier on this call or a vendor on this call who, Suncor is one of your biggest customers, yet they have told you that they're not going to accept some kind of a e-sign ticket approval because we want to do it this way. So it's really interesting to think about the fact that, it's obvious that there is a bit of a disconnect even within the ranks of some of these companies. However, what we've seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the trend is going up. Like would you, anecdotally, would you say that the rate of signups by these companies to approve tickets in Aimsio has actually gone up over the years?
Yes. So another metric that we track is how many new approvers we see in our system. And every month that number is also increasing. That tells me that, the system is being picked up. And as I have to say, one thing that our customers do, and they do a good job, every time we onboard a new customer, what they do, they sit down with these individuals and say, hey, we are adopting a new system. And now from tomorrow, you get, you expect to receive an email in this format, and this is where you go. So the kind of a small onboarding with a small that they do with their own customers, or at least the major ones that they normally work with. So they know, and then they're on board. And yes, there is always exceptions of one or two approvers that they're like, no, just, print a paper, bring it to me. And I'll sign, on a physical paper. But those are, we see less and less of those exceptions, I call them these days now. And now the question becomes, hey, I have a stamp, where do I put my stamp? Versus, hey, just sign with your name and then write down whatever major code, minor code. So those become a training issue. And as we have more data, they probably know some of their own colleagues that, that is already using Aimsio, that is, submitting, or our customers have worked with, their bosses, and the bosses were, using Aimsio. So they kind of navigate these situations where somebody might push back on using a solution. Because at the end of the day, majority of these people, they're already using email. So if something comes to your email, you open it, you sign it, you send it back. And the workflows that we have created, you could still kind of do the same thing if that's what you want to do. But then once they actually it's like a DocuSign. You get a login, you see historically what have you approved, and you don't need to go back and look into your emails. So they actually like it, and we have a lot of ideas are coming through us. Oh, can you add this? Can you do this? Because they are also seeing value in having something, not coming through an email, and through a system.
And that's worth mentioning here, just to expand on the functionality a little bit, is that unlike a DocuSign, which is a general purpose software, this portal is specifically designed for these types of interactions, right? So it's the uploading of a stamp and all these things. And to your point, the future is adding in some functionality, some visibility, some reporting that everybody's looking for. It's good to note that that's that's going to just improve the adoption of this, but also just the value that it's creating, right? On both sides of this transaction.
Yeah. And this is something, our customers, you want to show value to your customers. So you get the bids, you get the jobs, right? And some of them, yes, there is the rate sheets and whatnot, but a lot of it is how easy am I going to make life for you to have access to this data or these reports, historical data. So I see a trend where our customers build, fully customized Power BI dashboard just for their customers.
Right.
They're major, not everybody, but
right.
To show that, hey, this is something that we can add in addition to just getting the job done and submitting everything in time and whatnot.
Makes sense.
Now, as I said, the major industry players are not just testing, they're actually making the standard operating procedure. Hundreds of approvers across their organizations. And this is only going to increase. So this is being adopted as we speak. Now, I want to talk about the first thing that we noticed when we looked at the data. So majority of the tickets that were submitted in this data set of 122,000 tickets were falling between $1,000 to $10,000 range. So on the lower side, if you are a vac truck company or a trucking company, many jobs in the day, and the jobs is a few hours each, so a couple of hundred, less than $1,000. We have those on the 13% side, marked as orange. Then you have more matching companies, T&M, a lot of T&M heavy construction or electrical instrumentation, or really in these areas where you usually send a crew of people. So it's not just one driver and maybe their helper or swamper. It's more, I have a crew of 5, 10, 20, 50 people. There's a foreman, there is a labor helper, there's a hand, there's different trades that go to the job site. And they do mostly T&M, time and material work, where every hour of your work should be charged to the customer with the rate that has been agreed upon. And that's a key thing that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And then we have more than 10,000. So these are bigger contracts, lump sum jobs that our customers, a lot of pipeliners, at the end of progress billing or whatever that the contract is, there could be $50,000 ticket or $200,000 ticket. These are the ones where the CEO is refreshing the page to see to make sure
every hour. Yeah.
So we had a little bit of that, but the majority, the 62%, is within that range of I'm sending a crew, I'm charging time and material. I need to make sure everything is accounted for. Overtime is charged overtime. The weekends, if depending on the contract, and that's a huge thing to make sure that you're not. There's one thing to do the work, but at the same time, you want to get paid for the work that you have done. The next thing that I want to mention that was surprising to me when I looked at it was 91% of these tickets were approved in the first try.
Wow.
No need to go back and forth. And that was really, I was pleasantly surprised to see that. And then another 8% that makes it up to 99% were resolved or were approved within one try. So maybe the code was misplaced, or I'm going to talk about some of the reasons in another slide where tickets are declined. There are little things that our customers could, just
quickly
adjust. Yeah, it doesn't need a whole redo. And then there is the rest. So 99% within 1 or 2 tries, they are approved. Now, if you think about timing of things, again, this is before the whole invoice net 30, net 90, or whatever, right? This is the work, the actual work that was done. So 59% of these tickets were approved within 24 hours. So you prepare your ticket, you do all your internal approvals in your company, use the software, send it to the client's portal. A few hours later, it is approved. You can actually see if it is opened or not. And then it's kind of that power law. So the first 59% is within 24 hours. Then you have 22% within 2 to 5 days. And that's where we look at it. We say 81% within the first 5 days are approved, right? So imagine the work. So there is, when I look at it from a CFO perspective, and maybe this is the next slide. There is there's sometimes there's wait time, right? That when from the time your invoice is approved, now you have to wait net 30, net 90, whatever to get paid. And that is between you and your customer and the contract. But then there is some of the stuff that is internal. The days that I actually did the work that I have to pay for the payroll to pay my crew, until that work is ready to be invoiced. That is within the company's control, right? And the idea is as we should be able to minimize it as much as we can, because that would be the work in progress or WIP. That is something that every CFO is watching closely.
Crush that whip.
Now, just to put this into perspective, an example of a $10 million company. So revenue is $10 million, and the assumption is in a regular business, without having a lot of these optimized processes, cost of capital, let's say 7%. And the work is held up for 20 days before you can submit, and then you get paid. And if we assume that with that 81% within 5 days, so with Aimsio, it would be 5 days. So there's a 15-day difference in this case. If you multiply that 15 days by the interest rate per day, which is 7% divided by 365 days, and multiply by your $10 million revenue, it means that the number gets close to $29,000 saving of just getting your revenue faster and earlier. And this is relatively a small company. If you're at $50 million, the number is closest to $149,000. It's the money that you're just leaving on the table, and it's just being stuck into these, approvals and Excel and email that could be really streamlined. And as you can see, what our clients have been doing is they get it approved 59%, 60% within a day.
Yeah.
So they don't need to wait for that cash to be invoiced and to eventually get paid.
So for me, I mean, the big insight is that it's not just what happens after the invoice is created. It's really about what happens before the invoice is created that's going to save you money, and 29,000 or 100,000 or whatever it is, depending on the size of your company. It puts a tangible number on the importance of this problem. And I think that's the thing that was the big aha moment for myself and probably a lot of other folks. It's like you don't always think about what your systems and processes are costing you if it is inefficient, especially with respect to revenues. Like maximizing that flow, simplifying that transaction, getting it from the field to an invoice as quickly as possible so that your customers are going to approve it most of the time, first time around. That has so much value beyond just efficiency gains and all that stuff. It's just, it couldn't be any more important, because you and I both know, and so does everybody on this call, once it hits your customer's AP profile, yeah, they might take their time. And we don't have as much influence on that. We know that, but we are absolutely hoping that there's going to be some influence on that from various different groups and such in the future to make sure that timeline is minimized. But don't discount, I guess is what I'm trying to say, the importance of optimizing your entire workflow up into the point of approval and submission.
And I see that some of our majority of our customers, their accounting software is QuickBooks Desktop and Sage 50.
Yeah.
That's usually, you could argue, it's the entry point. And many of them also have, more sophisticated ERPs, NetSuite, Sage Intacct, Explorer, Eclipse, whatever, ERPs are sophisticated software. But if you're still waiting for the spreadsheets and emails to get the data into your ERP so you can invoice and send to your customer, that problem is still there, even if you have the most sophisticated ERP. And something like our software really helps, shortening that cycle. So from the time the work is done until it's ready to be invoiced and sent to your customers, hopefully it is within a day. You don't need to wait. We have one, and just these are anecdotal examples, but I have seen customers where They wait for their payroll period to be closed and finished, so then they can actually start charging their customers and start their invoicing process.
Yeah.
Because, and it is completely an internal thing that they did to themselves, so that, they are always 14 days at, at most behind for no reason. Just, we are waiting for our payroll to be processed.
Yeah.
So there's better ways to kind of optimize that cash flow. Now, I also want to talk about one thing, and feel free to check our blogs. We have a whole article about this that I'm really condensing into one slide. And the idea of the reasons, majority of the reasons the tickets are declined. If you remember that 99% or 91%, I'm talking about the other 9% of the times where a ticket is declined. Now, if I had $1 for every time an AFE was wrong on a ticket, I would have been a millionaire by now. This is number one. And this goes into the category of coding. Hours are not broken per task. Please update to this phase. Wrong AFE, wrong PO, change this. And these are the little things that, yeah, okay, let's just, update the AFE and then send it again.
Yeah.
But, if that's approver, is at the end of their day and they're clocking out and they're coming back tomorrow, you kind of lost one day, right? So coding is number one where tickets get declined. Number two is routing. This is also very important. And these are some real examples. This is not my work. Assigned to the wrong PM. I'm not the approver for these tickets. Please forward to XYZ. There is a ton of these reasons. One-liners, hey, I'm the wrong guy. This is harder to, and maybe it was an oversight, a mistake, but if you really thought that, person A is responsible and it's person B, and they didn't say who you have to send it to, now you have to go back, dig deeper, ask around. We are talking frictions, right? And delays in, submitting your work to get it approved. It doesn't need to be like that. Third one is mistakes. Mistakes happen, right? We have a lot of decline reasons where hours were charged as overtime and the customer is pushing back saying, no, this is in the regular time, or wrong rates were charged. And that is very common in Excel-based workflows where you copy the Excel and one of the tabs has all the rates and you forgot to, update the rate, or there's a formula that links to another Excel, but it is hidden, you don't see it, and the other Excel has a different rate. There is a story. I'm sure everybody who has used Excel, they can attest to that. Or sometimes you say half-ton truck to pull the trailer instead of some. So there's all these things that now we are getting a little bit more complicated, because now you have to go and see, was I really supposed to charge overtime or not? What happened in the field? Should I contact my foreman and talk it out to see what really happened? So this is not a quick AFE fix. This is more involved process to get it fixed and submit again. And then the last thing is the can you please us, right? Can you please split out the ticket to its own? Can you please do this on the other ticket? Like I would say this is the preference, and we talked about in that slide, the non-compliance versus built into MSA.
Yeah.
So these are the gray areas where you don't have to, but again, your customer is asking you, and if it is, you might pick up the phone and resolve it with them, or you might depending on the situation. But there's a lot of can you please or please do XYZ.
So, a lot of these seem to be just at their heart communication issues, right?
100%.
And some of these communication issues, I mean, they're just boiled down to, just human interaction. Obviously, we're flawed. We're not always going to hear the thing that we hear, or we think we heard something and it was actually something else. But I guess the insight that I get out of this is that if it were in a disconnected system, if you were dealing with these declined ticket approvals for any of these reasons that we're looking at here, and it were in a paper or Excel-based environment, the amount of detective work and administrative processes to find it and fix it and then resubmit it seems to be significant, right? Whereas at least in a centralized system, you're able to address these things probably much faster and just deploy it through the same original channel by making a quick adjustment here. Done. right? Is that a fair?
Yes, when we onboard our customers, we tell them, we make it a big red flag. When you go to your ticket listing pages,
Mm-hmm.
there's a column for whether it is invoiced or not, whether it is sent through client
Mm-hmm.
portal or not. And if somebody is rejecting it or has rejected it or declined it, the reason is there.
Yeah,
And then as part of your daily workflow, like there shouldn't be any decline ticket in your
of
listing
course.
page, right? If there is one, you gotta act on it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas if you're waiting on an email, there was the email sent and did it
Customer
bury through,
shop.
another, thousand other emails. So
Yeah.
it's hard when you're relying on disconnected system, whereas a consolidated
Mm.
bird's eye view on your tickets and your
Yeah.
revenue, I think is a huge step towards minimizing that work to invoice type of
Yeah.
um, the upstream of the revenue side of your business. Um, I think that's all we had. We're still good on time, so
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if you have any questions, please use the question and answer box that you will have on your little panel there of buttons that you have an option to click on. And please feel free to ask any questions at all. Um, and we'll wait for a couple to potentially come in here and see if we have any. Okay. And one question I had actually is, you know, are we seeing any of the same kind of trends in the US? So that's actually a really good question. And obviously Aimsio is we're operating both sides of the Canada-US border. We have a lot of US customers as well, and I think that the market dynamics in the US are similar, uh, but there's a little bit of a lag in the adoption, I think is probably the best way to describe it, right? Like, if you take companies like Conoco, XTO, Exxon, they're from what we've seen, anyways, they seem to be a little bit more reliant on traditional methods of approvals and haven't quite adopted as deeply into these types of systems. But I don't know, what do you
I'm
have?
gonna yes and it. Yes,
Yeah.
and there's
Okay.
two, it's like a two-sided coin. The other side of coin is there are, because they're majors, the Chevron and Conoco down there, they are pushing a lot on the systems to use. So there's open ticket is very prevailing down there. So if you have to use open ticket, for example, to submit your work and get it approved,
Hmm.
which means that now you have to go and then enter
Fill that.
every line
Yeah.
item there. So it adds more overhead
Right.
to the contractors and to the vendors of the marketplace
Yeah,
to
makes
do more
sense.
work. Yeah.
Makes sense. This is a great question as well. So do you have this is how you do this type of thing that we can send our clients beforehand, because there's been lots of attempts and it's been failing. So I guess just to rephrase the question, this person's looking for this is how you would prepare your clients, the producers, for transacting with them. So do we have anything that we could share? And that's actually a great question. I think we've talked about this in the past where we could even give our clients, our customers, our Aimsio users, this is a playbook for how you would introduce this type of thing to your clients, because your clients may be um, unaware that even within their own company, like you may be working with somebody as an approver in CNRL, they're unaware that 500 of their colleagues are approving tickets in Aimsio already. So you could send them this package to be like, hey, this is how it works. So I don't think we have that in play yet, but
I
maybe
think there is one in the works.
there's
Yeah.
one in the works.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes,
Cool.
that's
And great question.
but without it, like I said, our customers have been doing that. So in this case, we are following their lead on that. That this removes yet another step of friction between our customers and their customers
Mm-hmm.
to kind of facilitate that and just say
Yeah,
this is the new reality and it's okay. Everybody is using it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another great question here that we have is, do we have any data on what percentage of tickets in Aimsio are approved through client portal? So I think if I'm reading it right, not every ticket that's generated in our system will go through client portal for approval, right? Some of them won't, some of them will. I know that for sure we're seeing a trend up and to the right of adoption But are we kind of at the 50-50, 70-20, or 70-80, or 70-30? Like where's the adoption of Portal as a total of all of our ticket process?
Remember, I'm the data nerd.
Yeah, you are
I
the data
did
nerd.
not look into that.
Didn't look into that one. All right.
Okay.
Well, we're
I'm
going
not gonna
to
BS. I
we're
did not look into that.
all right, we're gonna look into that one. And again, I think just anecdotally, we know that it's increasing, but what the percentage is. So yeah, we will share that that for sure. And yeah, actually, we've got a note here. We do have a blog post on best practices for rollout. So coming back to the previous question about do we have something that we could share so that our customers can share with their customers? And there is a checklist, actually a rollout checklist. So we will put that into
The rollout check, of course.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll put that into the follow-up email for everybody to take a look at when we are done here today, and be sure to share that. So thanks for calling that one out, Samantha. Appreciate it. All right. Any other questions? Do you have any other questions that came up or no? No, we're looking good. Okay, so we are right on time. 3 minutes early, so everybody can have the rest of their day back. But I really want to express my gratitude for everybody coming in today and spending your time with us. I know it's a busy time of year. Holidays around the corner. We're excited for 2026 here at Aimsio and helping everybody on the call achieve operational excellence. Abbas, thank you for sharing your wisdom,
No.
your nerd wisdom with us and analyzing the data. I think it's been incredibly valuable. So, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and
Merry Christmas to
hope you
you
have a
and to everybody else.
great day. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Take care.